I'd like to take the veil back and share with you a bit about my past. My desire to do this is not to have you feel sorry for me, to have pity, or to make anyone in this sharing wrong, because this is not about blame, shame, or pity. This is about showing the hand of the divine, how life can transform us and lead us into our greatness. And sometimes how we harshly judge ourselves in the most horrible ways at the times when the divine is actually working. So let me begin. My mother, what I can recall of her in my first 4 years of life, is that she had a very powerful personality. She was highly emotional at times, and when I say highly, I mean extremely, extremely loving, too much so for me, loud, and even emotionally violent even. And I don't mean violent from, gosh, yes, I do mean destructive. I was really only with her in the first 4 to 5 years of my life, because when I was 4, my dad and my stepmother received custody of me because my mom was an alcoholic. I don't remember a lot of scenes with her, moments with her, I should say, but it really was scenes. The greatest one that I remember is her on the top of my dad's car, on the hood of it, with a butcher's knife, screaming that he needed to give me back to her. And at the time, I just remember sitting silently in the back seat, staring out. I don't remember even being scared. I just remember not wanting to leave the car. And I didn't. It was like a scene for me then. All of my memories with my mom, my mother is what I called her, are dark and troubling and even encroaching. I felt like when she was hugging me and loving on me, it was suffocating, as though she was trying to prove something that I didn't feel and I couldn't receive. It was too much, too much, too emotional. And then there was my stepmother, who was around from the age of 1. And then she married my dad when I was 4. And when my mother, exited the scene was about the time when my little sister arrived. My little sister that was my stepmom's true daughter. And I became not the loving daughter that she had so cherished for 3 years, but I became the stepdaughter that she was jealous of, who got in the way of her own daughter being the prized one, the first one for the family as well as my dad. And I just remember feeling as though I could never be good enough. I could never do right. I was constantly wrong. I used to hide in my room and make lists of clothes and how many outfits I could put together of all those clothes, and draw and listen to music and escape from the world. I would organize my room and my sister's toy box because, gosh, her toy box was always a mess. And I would lose myself in those activities. When I wasn't in my room, I was outside of the house. I was visiting friends, playing Uno, and staying out of underfoot of my stepmom. When I was in the house, even at the age of 5, 6, 7, and 8, I was made to dust the house, wash dishes, and I remember having to put my hands in water that felt scalding, so scaldingly hot that my hands would turn red. And I would stand at the sink on my little red stool because I wasn't tall enough. But they were never cleaned properly. I didn't properly clean them, and I would get called out for not dusting properly or not properly cleaning the dishes, and just being wrong in so many ways, and not realizing that I was just a child. I didn't realize that I was just a child, that I was being asked to be something that I didn't have prior knowledge to how to be. Didn't have prior knowledge to tell me how to do it right, how to please her, and that really there was no way to please her because something inside of her got gouged out from her own childhood and then from marrying a man who already had a child, who had already been married, and becoming a stepmother. She had no idea the world that she was bringing herself into or how that would play with her own emotions. And so I promised you at the beginning of this that I would show you the hand of the divine. And so before I get too far into the story, I want to show you already the hand of the divine. In my early childhood days, even with being with my mother, I learned to be alone and to love my alone time. I cherished the time of drawing and dreaming and connecting. It's a pivotal thing that I was taught from an early age. And then later on, it gave me the space in which to hear the things that were from beyond. I heard the voices of those that passed on. My grandfather who left me at the age of 8, another grandfather at the age of 11. They spoke to me in their passing. At that time, it didn't disturb, but I knew not to share it with others. I just had the conversations inside my body, knowing that they were there. And they began to open up gifts inside of me that later would make me feel awkward and weird and unfathomable to myself. And when you can't understand yourself, you judge. When you look at yourself and you can't find a way that you fit into the world, you judge. You try to fix. You try to eradicate that which isn't reflected around you. Or at least that's what I did. The moments where my very own thoughts were found on the lips of others, as though they were reading my mind, and not realizing at that time that they weren't reading my mind, but that I had a gift of thought transference. But it was so obvious to me that there was no way, unless they were reading my thoughts, that they could know the things that they were speaking of. I had no awareness that there was such a thing as thought transference when I was 13 and 14 years old. And later, when I would feel people who were miles away and know their thoughts and what they were going through, and that they would visit me in dreams, and I would feel tortured by their unhappiness or their thoughts until I would contact them. I didn't understand it. I didn't have anyone around me who reflected these kind of gifts I know now, but tortures is what I felt then, to be able to explain to me what was going on. Or the moments where I literally felt as though electrical currents were flowing through the bones inside my body. And I don't mean little tremors or little feelings of vibration. It was like I didn't have a bone inside my legs, that they were vibrating so violently. And those that I asked, even in spiritual circles, had no idea what I was going through. They couldn't reflect it from their own experiences. And so it was my job to go and find out what was going on, to discover where the hand of divine was moving through not only my life, but my body, my experiences, and even the things that were happening to me from others. Others were pushing me into my alone time so that I would have a deep foundation with myself and with the divine. They were pushing me to understand that the pain endured in people's lifetimes shaped in ways in which they treated others. The ways that I was treated by these two women, and even by my father, helped to open my eyes to not judgment, not blame, but to a sensitivity of how pain shapes in the ways that we treat others. And so many people haven't understood why I don't hold these people accountable. I don't sit them on a chopping block and judge them. That I have love for all of them because I understand their pain. I understand I'm futile myself, and that every single moment I have a choice, and that if I've cling to my feelings of inadequacy and victimhood, that it will entrap me into a way of being that will not only hurt me and trap me even more, but will hurt others. And so I'm going to fast forward for a moment all the way to my marriage and the end of my marriage. When that happened, I had a choice to hate and hold accountable my ex-husband for his actions, and to hold on to that pain like a vest of protection that would keep others out, including him, and hold him accountable to the end of his days. But instead I chose a very different path, a path that I had to sit and ask myself how I wanted to live, how I wanted my children to live. And it was in those choices that I realized that holding the pain close, validating my own wounds, actually carved them out even deeper and brought others into the pain. And that my vision, instead of what I desired, carved something else. It carved a path forward for grace, for creation, and for rising. And what it did is it allowed me to realize I wanted my boys to have a father. I wanted them to have a childhood. I wanted them not to need to parent me or protect me, but to be able to freely love and be. And in that wanting, I was like supported by that desire to rise up inside of myself out of my own pain and into a creation of being that strengthened and expanded and blossomed my life. It also allowed me to pull other people in who reflected that nurturing, power, transparency, and it brought miracles in where I did have a kind and supportive relationship with my ex-husband. And I did actually realize the places in which I let down the side in my marriage, where I was so protected my entire marriage that I never became vulnerable enough for him to get in enough for me to be loved. He got in enough to hurt me. Yes. We often leave ourselves exposed, even with our protection, to be hurt. But our protection often builds a wall up, so we're never actually loved. Interesting that. It's the thing that we long for the most, and our wall keeps it out. So the divine kept working in me in those choices. And it was often in the moments where I judged myself the most, moments where when I was 15 years old and I couldn't stand being in my house anymore with a stepmother who, I don't know how else to say it, lived to find wrongness in me and to torture me. I really don't believe her intent was to do that, but her pain at the existence of me and the love that my father had for me meant she couldn't help but want to hurt me and to hurt my life. And so I made a choice to leave. And actually her mother, my step-grandmother, took me in. But that choice to leave, I judged as weakness, that I couldn't stay and endure, that in leaving, I was the victim. In leaving, I was wrong. And what I want to say now is I have often misread and misjudged my own actions. It was in the leaving that the divine moved through me. It brought me to a space of courage, clarity, and strength that I was judging as weakness, confusion, and timidity. It wasn't the first time, and it wasn't the last time that I judged an act of mine that was brought from the divine as weakness. And I wonder if today, the reason I brought this whole conversation up is I wonder how often you have made a choice that was actually invoked by the divine, that was filled with softness, maybe, power, strength, and you called it cowardice. You thought it was wrong. And what if you could take a moment and look back, not with your own eyes, but that of God's, and actually see the path of the divine in your own life. I wonder if it would give you a different perspective on what was being created, even in the most troublesome times, even in the moments where you think you are being wrong, mean, weak. Yes, I thought I was mean in that moment. Mean to my stepmom, mean to my dad, because I was taking care of myself. But in all actuality, I was setting all of us free. I just want to leave you with those questions today. And I'll be honest, I did a lot of these questions all by myself, and they took me years to get through. I fumbled to find the truth beneath all the dirt, the treasures beneath all the dirt that was buried in there. It took me longer because I did it alone. I reached out, I tried, but there weren't many people who were willing to ask and pause and wait. Most wanted to tell me, and they wanted to validate my victimhood. They wanted to point blame and put pity on me. It didn't help. And so if you feel like you're bumbling along with these questions and you need some help, you need help to find where your spaces of the divine were, how the hand of God wove through your life and what it's still asking to bring out of you and through you and around you. If you want some help with that, I invite you to reach out. The easiest way to do that is to email me at tara.mccullum@gmail.com. It's tara.mccullam@gmail.com. Or go to my website at taramccullum.com. I'd love to spend some time talking to you on a complimentary discovery call and then find out if we want to work together to map out the path of the divine in your life and to shine a light on what your capacities are, on what you're being asked to rise into and blossom into, and where you have already blossomed and maybe judged that it was wrong, so that you can start using those capacities for you instead of against you and your life, and start reaping the benefits that God and the universe have for you. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you a lovely day or night wherever you are.